So I kind of see technology like a superpower, and you have to, with great power comes responsibility. So I think that as long as technology is amazing, but if it gets into the wrong hands, then it immediately becomes something that could be a huge threat to democracy. So I think it's going to be a case of citizens remaining really vigilant and being really engaged on the topic to make sure that their civil rights and freedoms are protected, but also embracing and realizing the potential of democracy. Also realizing the potential of technology to deliver us information and to really empower us as world citizens. Technology in and of itself isn't good or bad. It's what you do with it. It's how it's used. The technology of the future, as I see it, could be bad for democracy in the sense that, in the wrong hands, or if information or technology starts to be filtered, it could be very dangerous. If you think about sort of Nazi propaganda and you think about the channeling of information like that, there are lots of examples about how that could be really dangerous. I also think it could be bad from the perspective of privacy. Just for me personally, the fact that everyone in the world essentially carries the camera with them all the time has really changed, my life. And it's interesting because fans will ask me, can we do a selfie or can we do a picture? And I will really want to, but because location services are attached to photographs, within seconds, everyone in the world can know exactly where I am, down to my square foot within an airport or something, which is kind of mind-boggling. And it was one of the things that we explored in a movie that I did called The Bling Ring, which was that essentially this group of kids were able to use technology. They were able to use Street View on Google Maps to figure out which window they could get into to break into someone's house. And because there was so much information about where these celebrities were in the world, they were literally able to plan their robberies when they knew the celebrities were out of the country, and figure out exactly which window they could go into in their house and where they lived in order to be able to do it. And so that's a really good example of wow, how do we protect our privacy in those circumstances? How do you, that was too much information was out there, basically. So it's really interesting, and I try to kind of explain this to fans, which is like, when I'm not working, I want to be able to move around as freely as I can and to draw as little attention to myself as possible. And technology makes that difficult. It's very easy to track me, potentially. And what's really interesting now is that whether you're a celebrity or not, that problem is actually very relatable. I think a lot of my friends that I speak to are very concerned about the fact that, wow, I feel like I'm being spied on. Like, Facebook knows exactly which adverts to show me because they can see what I've clicked on in the past. Or, wow, like, Facebook has access to all of the contacts in my phone book. Or it's very, we give away so much information about ourselves very freely, particularly as a generation, as a millennial, but we don't think about what the consequences of that might be and how much power that puts, how much power we're giving to someone else. So it's a really interesting debate, and but I think it's one of the reasons why I was so vocal during the Leveson inquiry in England, which was this big kind of inquest into the fact that the media had hacked into answer phone machines of various different English people and had used the information in various different ways. And I think protecting people's privacy like that is incredibly important, and I will always be very vocal on the subject. So yeah, I think it's a right. I think it's a pillar of democracy. Privacy is a pillar of democracy too. So another way that I see this happening is that I recently watched Misrepresentation. It's an amazing documentary. If you haven't seen it, find time to watch it. But what it points out is that our media, our media is essentially controlled by a very, very small number of people at the top, most of which are men. And so the kind of information that we receive, the kind of ideas that we receive about women and men, and it is only coming from a one-gendered perspective, or is filtered down from the top from one perspective. And I think sexism in the media is a huge issue, and especially for the young women reading it, it can really affect their self-esteem, how they view themselves, how they see themselves in the world. It can have huge knock-on effects and impacts. So, that's an example of technology potentially, with too much power placed into a very small number of people's hands, it is potentially really dangerous. I think that technology can be amazing for democracy. We've seen just recently, in the last 5 years, I would say, that citizens are able to record events that are happening around them, and as such provide evidence of atrocities that are happening all over the world. And that's very powerful because it allows everyone to be an active bystander. It allows us to have real insight really into things which are going on hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles away from us, which is incredible. And certainly with my UN work, being able to provide information, to spread ideas through social media and technology is immensely powerful. So I think those are examples of how I think it's really good for democracy. I also really like how technology has kind of democratized who gets a voice and who doesn't, in the sense that I'm very privileged. I have a kind of a platform as a result of having been in film, but maybe like 10 years ago, not everyone would have had a forum or a platform within which to share their opinions or share their voice. And I use Instagram, and all of my friends use Instagram, and that to me feels like, and we all have the same playing field with which to do that. So that feels really good. The other thing that's great about it is, from a very selfish perspective, I guess, is that when things are written in the media, it essentially provides me with a right to reply. So maybe 10 years ago, something could have been written, and I would have quite a difficult time of sort of finding an opportunity in which I could discuss, the fact that I'm not carrying Prince Harry's unborn baby or unborn child, or that I'm not, whatever crazy thing is being written. And it gives me an opportunity to kind of stop things before they get too out of control. I tend not to try and comment too much on what is being said or discussed about me, but when I'm getting calls from my grandma, I know it's time that I have to step in and set things straight. It's usually the call from my grandma that tells me that, okay, I should probably say something about this now. So yeah, and I think that's very empowering. So it gives everyone an equal chance to be heard, which is a good thing.